Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast. Now, one of the reasons I launched this podcast was to explore how technology is solving real-world problems and helping people and transforming our world in some cases. Because at the time, it did seem that every tech website, magazine or news report was obsessed with the next shiny must-have gadget or smartphone, or even blaming technology for replacing humans. So I wanted to restore the balance and celebrate how technology is being used for good. So when I heard about a company called Wysa and how it's a AI-guided mental health platform that's delivering clinically validated care through 150 interactive mental resilience exercises, but it's not all about technology, it's actually a professional expert coaching underpinned by emotionally intelligent conversational AI, I felt compelled to find out more, especially around how it's human expertise and tech working together to complement one another rather than compete. That just felt like a perfect fit for today's episode. So Wysa delivers support to over 4.5 million users in 65 countries directly through employee benefit providers, insurance providers, schools, and even individual users of a mobile app. Today's guest is going to tell me all about this and also the story behind the company. So buckle up and hold on tight, because although our guest can usually be found in Boston and New York and around the world, today I'm going to beam your ears all the way to Bangalore, where I was able to sit down with him for 45 minutes and have a conversation with about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Thank you, Neil, and thank you for having us here. My name is Ramakant Ram. I am the founder of a company called Wysa. Wysa is a very interesting take on mental health support, a topic which I think has become really, really important during the pandemic. I think it's taken center stage. Everybody's experienced mental distress during their time in the pandemic for a variety of reasons. And I think we've also realized how hard it is to get access to mental health support when we need it. So Wysa tries to address that demand in a very unique way. It uses and delivers CBT and other self-help techniques and therapy techniques through an AI conversational agent or a chatbot. And it does so in a clinically safe manner. It does so at scale. We've been around for more than 6 years now, and Wysa is one of the largest in the world in this space. So we've had 500 million conversations on the platform and served over 5 million users across 65 countries. So very proud and very grateful to be doing the work which we are doing and helping so many people across the world at a time of need.
And as you said, mental health is such a hot topic right now. And I'd love to learn more about how the worlds of mental health and leveraging technology to better help and support people there, how those worlds collided for you. So if I was to take you back in time, can you remember where your passion for tech came from, or the moment that these worlds would collide and put you on this path you're on today?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Neil. I'm not a mental health expert myself. I'm not a psychologist. My perspective is that of a user or a caregiver. My co-founder and my partner in life, Jo, she's the product person in the relationship, in the partnership, and I'm the business person. And together, our path into mental health started out of personal need. So we spent a bunch of time in the UK in the earlier part of our careers, then moved to the Middle East, worked in UN-backed working on youth economic livelihoods and employment, working a lot in conflict areas across the world and across the Middle East and North Africa region. Then went to India, where my parents, where we grew up, both Joe and I grew up, and my parents were. And my dad had bipolar. So that was my first brush with mental health or mental illness as a caregiver. Our original idea when we started the company was to do something in elder care, mainly responding to the need which my father had. And that idea didn't take off. We had raised a little bit of funding at that time. And when we realized that the money we had taken would probably not be of any use because this idea would not take off, Joe went into depression. And that was my second experience as a caregiver. And Jo taught herself CBT as a way of pulling ourselves out, or herself out of the situation she found herself in. And that's when we realized that with all the best will in the world and all the access to all the resources in the world, it is still very hard for people to come forward and take help. And what is available out there is hard to use, it's hard to access, it's hard to derive benefit from. And with our own experiences and life experiences, we realized that maybe there's a better way of doing it. And that's how Wysa, as a chat platform based on AI, was born.
Wow, it's such a powerful story. And I think it will resonate with so many people listening, because I think it can sneak up on each and every one of us when we least expect it. And your unique path led you to Wysa, which is an AI-guided mental health platform. But is there anything else you can tell me about how you solve these problems with technology?
Yeah.
Is there anything
Well,
you can tell
Neil,
me?
I think a lot of people ask me this. They say, why AI? And really, at the number of people who've asked me about the movie Her
Yes.
and said, have you seen it? And if I had, I think, a pound for every time someone said that, I think I'd be really, really rich right now. I think I was a skeptic about using AI when we launched, because I wasn't quite sure whether people would talk to an AI chatbot about, their deepest, darkest fears, what they're going through, the distress they're facing right now. And, you use chatbots to order pizza or maybe order a taxi. And why would anybody use it for mental health?
Yeah.
And but I think 5 months after we launched, I think two things happened, which made me a believer. One, I lost my father, and eventually, and I managed my grief, by actually teaching myself CBT and using Wysa, and I realized that it works. The second thing was, a lot of people started using it. We just put it out there on the Play Store as a direct to consumer app. And within days, within weeks, we were up to hundreds and hundreds of people who were finding, and because they were searching for help online, they were finding Wysa and started using it. And we started getting reviews saying that this is useful. And the third thing, which I think was literally when the penny dropped, was when a 13-year-old girl wrote to us. I remember Jo and I were on holiday in the Himalayas, and we got this email from this girl who was, otherwise she was using a link which is used to report issues in the app, broken links and things like that. And I'll never forget what the email said. It said, I'm 13, I have depression, and I tried to commit suicide. You're the only thing which is helping me hold on. So thank you. And let me hasten to add that Wysa is not meant to be a suicide prevention or app, or someone who's contemplating self-harm, but just the fact that, and we are very careful to direct them towards resources, appropriate resources, when someone says this, but just the fact that someone found it useful, late at night, 4 a.m, you have no one to talk to, you're not sure whether somebody else will take your call, you don't have a therapist because you're on a waiting list, and you're not comfortable talking to your friends or family, and you still need someone to talk to. And the fact that something like an AI agent, or a chubby little penguin in this case, which is sitting on your phone, is there and is able to hear and is able to provide that empathetic listening experience, and just be there when you want to talk, was extremely powerful. And I think that is the moment when I started believing and saying, oh my goodness, we are onto something really, really big. And this can actually, done right and done in the right manner, this can move the needle on a very large problem. And so at that point, it became, or it transformed from being a personal story or a personal journey into somewhat of a mission, or somewhat of a attempt to look at the broader macro picture and saying, can we solve that instead? Or can we solve that in addition to helping ourselves?
It's absolutely beautiful what you've achieved here, and receiving an email like that is just phenomenal, because I think none of us get to hear about how our work can impact people located anywhere in the world. And technology does get a bad rap at the moment. And hearing stories like this and how you're making a real difference to, a 13-year-old girl is just phenomenal. And I always say on this podcast every day that technology works best when it brings people together. And what first put you guys on my radar was that, yes, you're a professional expert coaching and underpinned by emotionally intelligent conversational AI. And it's those fusion of all these things together. But can you tell me more about the human expertise and how that combined with technology can complement rather than compete with each other? Because again, this is a story we don't hear that much about, isn't it?
And that's a brilliant question, Neil, and that's exactly what we are also very careful of. At a time when one AI has a very bad rap and people are wary or maybe even scared of what this means, especially given I think all the developments in the recent past around chatbots and so on. So one needs to be very careful and make sure that the AI element is clinically safe, it's robust. So we use it, and we hopefully, if we get time, we'll talk about what we do to make sure that it is clinically robust and it is safe. And the second is also to be very, very clear that this can never and should never replace a human therapist or a human contact and human support. It is a complement. It is there when someone may not be willing to or able to reach out, and it is there as a safe space. People stay anonymous. I think one huge advantage is when you're using Wysa, you give yourself a nickname and you essentially stay nameless. And at one stroke, you're able to remove a large part of that stigma and that self-imposed barrier people have of not wanting to appear vulnerable in front of another human being. That is a huge ask. Even our therapists who are on our team or our clinicians who are on our team say that 80% of therapy is actually becoming comfortable with being seen by your therapist. And at one stroke, when you're using something like, talking to a penguin and staying anonymous while doing it, you're removing that part, and hopefully you're extending a helping hand for people to start that process, to have those conversations, feel heard, figure out what is going on, maybe even develop the vocabulary and the confidence to then say, okay, now I know either that, okay, fine, I'm actually feeling helped right now because I'm able to help myself. And with something like the AI chat platform or with the chat, it is nudging me towards exercises, self-help techniques where I'm able to help myself, or I now need more and I can reach out to help. And that's where the human coaches and the human support comes in. So we do this in two ways. One is we have a team of our own clinicians and specialists. But in a lot of cases, for example, when we work with the NHS in the UK, we send people on to human therapists and human experts and clinicians who already exist. So we work with large insurance companies across the world. They have their own network of support. So Wysa acts as the early engagement, the digital front door, so to speak, and then depending on need can hand off and escalate to a human expert if required. And in some cases, we have mental health professionals, experienced and qualified coaches in their own geographies with 5 to 15 years of experience, masters in clinical psychology. So these people then take a coaching role and they're able to provide help and support to the users who might need it. I'd say 80% of the time when we work with large institutional partners, large employers, insurance companies, or public health agencies like the NHS, we actually hand off to networks of support which they already have in place. So I think this is a beautiful example of a place where the digital and the human element are complementing each other. For example, 8 out of 10 people who use the Wysa platform stay within digital. So they never go to, or they don't feel the need to go to a therapist or to a coach. So what that tells me is that you're able to not just direct people to the appropriate help, but you're also able to absorb some of that demand, which is really important in a time when therapists are always in short supply and waitlists are ever growing longer and longer. So you still want to deploy high quality help to millions and billions of people, but you don't have the people to do so. So here is a solution which, when it works in conjunction with what you already have in place, is able to support maybe 10 times more people, absorb a lot of that demand, and make sure only the people who really need help are the ones who are coming in and actually taking help from a human being. So it's possible for you to get the best of both worlds in this case.
Wow, absolutely incredible. And we are talking to people today in over 165 countries. So for someone listening anywhere in the world who might find themselves listening to this podcast in a bit of a crisis right now, or waking up in the middle of the night, or an individual who cannot afford or find traditional support options, for those people listening, how does the Wysa app help?
So there are two types of people here, Neil. One,
Yeah,
of course, who may have access through their own institution,
yeah,
school, college, their NHS trust, and so on and so forth. And I'm not, by the way, I'm not sure whether it's 165 countries, but it's definitely 65 plus.
yeah.
And it's safe to say that it's a very, very large number. And a lot of these countries are places where people will not have access to support. And we know that because they've come and told us in so many words. So there they can just go on to Google Play, or they can go onto the Apple App Store and just search for Wysa. It's Wysa, and type it in, and there you go. And download the app and give yourself a nickname. I can call myself like Luke Skywalker if I want to, or Spider-Man, and that's it. I'm off. And I can start having conversations. There is a penguin which is sitting there and waiting to help you. Think of it like your own personal, warm diary, which is allowing you to journal your thoughts and reflect upon what you're going through, and is nudging you and asking you open-ended questions and gathering context and providing resources from time to time for you to consider using. And what we find is, especially for people who are not very serious or who are not in acute distress, which might need specialist support, a lot of people still need to talk. And that's the place where Wysa helps. And for example, I might be, my boss might have come and shouted at me at work, and I might be thinking, oh my God, I'm being bullied at work. And now CBT as a technique, cognitive behavioral therapy, really helps in a situation like this, because the underlying principle is that your feelings are controlled by your thoughts. So your thoughts influence your feelings. And because my thought was, I am being bullied at work, I will feel distress, I will feel anxiety, I might feel anger and resentment. Now, if I just restructure that thought to say, oh, I'm due for a promotion next year, and my boss actually wants me to do well, and she's pushing me to perform, so she actually cares for me. It's exactly the same situation, but my feeling towards the situation would change. And that inner work actually happens by oneself. And what you really need is a helping hand or a nudge, and that frame to think about it in that way, or nudge you to think about it in that way. But that reframing actually happens by yourself. So that's an example of the kind of conversation which Wysa would have with a user and help them to help themselves in a way.
And as you said, you use tech to help 4.5 million users across at least 65 countries directly through employee benefit providers, insurance providers, schools, and equally individual users of the mobile app. But I'm curious, you mentioned that great story there, the inspiring story of the 13-year-old girl. Are there any other feedback or success stories that you've got to hear about of how your technology is impacting? Well, not just the technology, the expert and the technology combined, and how that is impacting people's lives?
Absolutely. I think one is the awards and accolades we've received, but we'll keep that aside. The most powerful is when the user comes and tells you that this has really helped. Since that 13-year-old girl, I think more than 230 people have written in various shapes and forms saying that this has saved their life, that they're only alive today because of Wysa. There was, in fact, one individual from the UK who somehow, maybe I shouldn't say this on your podcast, but somehow found our phone number and called us in a different country, and from the UK, saying, guys, I was put on a wait list, and I really needed help. I found Wysa and it saved my life. And I just wanted to call and say thank you. And we were very gratified, but we were also quite nervous, saying, how did you find our number? But that was another example. They were, and because users are anonymous, you never really meet them in real life. But I remember there was one time when we were giving a talk at an event, and a girl in the audience stood up, and she came to us after the talk was over and said, are you guys the founders? And we said yes. And she said, I have been using Wysa for the last 1 year. I'm about to go overseas for my master's degree. I have severe anxiety. I didn't want to tell my parents because then they wouldn't allow me to leave home. And really, you're helping me manage this and actually go out and achieve my dreams. And there was a huge bunch of us in the audience as well. And she said, I just want to meet all of you and just say a deep thank you from, in terms of what you guys are doing. And those are, I think, some personal stories which happen, and I think they're hugely gratifying when they happen. Every public review, so we get 150, I think we have maybe more than 150,000, 200,000 reviews now, reviews and ratings on the Play stores, where people in so many words tell us how this has helped. And each one of those reviews goes automatically into, we use Slack at work, and it goes into a Slack channel. Every employee gets unfiltered access to every review as it comes in, and they directly can see the impact their work is having on someone in real time. And whether they like it, whether they love it, whether it saved them, whether they hate it or it didn't work at all, everybody gets to know all the time. And I think that's been the biggest motivators for keeping the team together, because they believe in the work they do, and they believe that they're actually helping in some small way in solving this large problem, maybe making the world a better place.
Wow, absolutely love that. And before you came on the podcast today, I was doing a little bit of research on what goes on behind the scenes, and I was reading that Wysa's efficacy is actually backed by leading researchers at huge respected institutions such as University of Cambridge, Harvard University, Columbia University, and the pipeline of the scientific backing and clinical proof has garnered Wysa the breakthrough device designation by the FDA, as well as recognition from the NHS here in the UK too. If you put all this together, can you tell me more about what that recognition means to you?
It's, I think, hugely important to us because it helps us. I think it serves the mission of reaching as many people as possible, because that builds credibility, that builds our own confidence that this works. So if I were to take a step back, Neil, I think we really are looking at this in three phases, or three waves, if you will. The first one was convincing ourselves that this works. The 13-year-old girl, the reviews, the ratings, people coming and saying it worked. So you have enough confidence to then expose this to more rigorous testing, more rigorous investigation from the best minds on the planet, the best institutions on the planet. And they come back and then tell you, saying the regulator, or people like the NHS, or all the universities and the research partners whom we're so grateful for working with us, they come back and say that, yep, we think this works. That gives you the confidence to then go out and then talk to large bodies, institutional bodies, who have access to many, many more people in need. And that allows you to then take that final step forward and saying, look, it's not just us who's saying this is a good solution. There are a lot of other people who are demonstrating clinical efficacy. We now have nearly 20 peer-reviewed research publications, the largest evidence base in this space globally. And that gives us the confidence to then walk into that room and saying, you need to use this, because there are a lot of people out there whom we are not able to serve. And this can actually help, because it fills that gap between person in need and not being able to get to a therapist or to a human coach or a support system in time. You need something in middle, and you can use Wysa.
Fantastic. And I'm curious, we mentioned right at the beginning of this conversation about it being such an important topic right now. And also on top of that, if we look at the Great Resignation, and employee experience and employee well-being is increasingly entering the top of the conversations in workplaces. So with that in mind, are you noticing an increase in employers wanting to work with you to support their employees? And are there any other trends in conversations that you're having with your customers around the world?
Absolutely. I think we are seeing an increase. The pandemic obviously saw a sharp increase in people looking for help or looking for ways to scale access to help. That is continuing as we go forward. We are in fact we are about to launch a very important report around, you spoke about the Great Resignation and stress at work. And obviously we spend such a large part of our lives at work. And when you are not happy or you're in distress, then all kinds of pain ensues for you and your family. There are economic impacts. So we're releasing a very interesting study on a large scale analysis of employees who have used Wysa and how they have spoken about their distress. And we are seeing some fantastic patterns come out, and I would love to reach out and talk more about that when the report is out, and also the impact we are seeing on reduction in things like anxiety and depression by usage of Wysa, which I think augurs really well for the work we are doing with all our employer partners. And to answer your question, yes, we are seeing very good, interesting cross-cultural, cross-geographic patterns, which are consistent, saying that what you hear anecdotally around the fact that mental distress is here, it's real. We see that in on the platform. We see how people talk about distress, and with 500 million conversations, we actually have a lot of data to say this with a lot of confidence. And it's sad but true that the need is increasing and demand is increasing. We just need to find a good way of bridging that demand and getting people to the help they need. And hopefully Wysa is a small piece of that solution.
And if we zoom out for a moment, you've already facilitated well over 400 million therapeutic conversations, and you're also embarking on this period of exponential growth in product. And especially, I think it was a 20 million Series B funding round last year too. So I've got to ask, what's next? Where do you go from here? And what can we expect from Wysa in 2023?
There's a lot of exciting things happening. Clearly, a lot more partnerships to scale up the work we are already doing. Lots of interesting work on the product side. So we are thinking about new languages. We are working on a version in Spanish right now. So not just English. We are also working on a version in Hindi for a lot of our friends in the Indian subcontinent and in South Asia or the diaspora across the world. And we're also thinking about new platforms for delivery of help. So rather than just using or thinking about this as an app, people don't download apps all the time, and people are very careful about the number of apps they have on their phone. So can you do this on the web? So we have a web version of Wysa. We're taking it one step further and thinking, can you do this on WhatsApp? Now imagine a 13-year-old girl in Rwanda, for instance, and she has WhatsApp on her phone and nothing else. Could there be a number she starts texting to, and you can deliver high quality, clinically assured CBT on WhatsApp to that girl halfway across the world? That's the vision. I mean, that we want to get to those many millions more people who need help by using platforms such as these. So that's the future for us. I think it's very, very exciting. The funding is obviously very grateful to all our investors who are backing us in this journey. But the excitement is around the scale of what we can achieve and the number of people we can help.
Now, none of us are able to achieve any degree of success without a little help along the way. So before I let you go, I'm going to ask you, is there a particular person that you're grateful towards who may have helped you, invested a bit of time, or maybe even saw something in you and helped you get where you are today? Who would you thank?
There are so many people, Neil, we would like to thank. I think our angel investors are called angels for a reason. Yeah. But there's so many of them, I don't think I can name them all. Our advisors, I think one name specifically stands out. Dr. Becky Inkster, she's a honorary research fellow at the Department of Psychiatry at Cambridge, University of Cambridge, and she's a neuroscientist by training. And she's also one of the world's leading experts on the ethics of AI. So she's done a lot of work in that. She's consulted with leading government bodies across the world, including the UK, on the ethics of AI. And she's one of the most generous people I have met. And by generous, I mean at a time when this was just a glimmer in our eye, and maybe not even that. I remember we went and we met Becky at a conference through some mutual friends, and we spoke about the work we were doing. And she hosts a very well-known and well-respected conference every year called Digital Interventions in Mental Health. And she did not know us at all. She didn't know whether she could trust the work we were doing, but she found what we were doing compelling enough to say, why don't you come and speak at that conference? And through that, and she also helped us out of her generosity in our first research paper, which was published in a very respected medical journal called JMIR, which which demonstrated that usage of Wysa is associated with reductions in depressions of symptoms of depression, using a standard questionnaire called the PHQ-9. And she helped us write the paper. She helped us do the research and frame it in the right way so that the research community would investigate and find that evidence good enough. And that started our journey towards, which has now culminated in the FDA and the breakthrough device designation and so on. And she did not charge us anything. She did not ask for anything in return. She just said, I think you're doing good work and I just want to help you. And since then, 3 or 4 of our largest clients have come out of the people we've met at those conferences. Our path and journey into research has started from there. I think it just goes to see when, experts who are at the top of the field reach out and decide to help people who are trying to do something different, it has a transformative impact. I think I've seen it, and Joe and I have seen it in real time. And I just hope that Becky and lots of other people like her just reach out and help entrepreneurs who are trying to do this. Because and especially in healthcare, given the sensitivity of the subject, you want experts who are not gatekeepers, but you want experts who are bridge builders, right? So who build bridges and saying, I believe in what you're doing. It has potential, do it right. And I help you do it right. Rather than saying this won't work because. And I think that's the difference. That's the transformative difference which an advisor can make, an expert can make in your journey as a startup, as an entrepreneur. And we have a lot to thank Becky for.
Wow, that's incredible. Again, further proof, if it were needed, that technology works best when it brings people together. And I love how it's brought you guys together. And as she said there, you're doing good work and I want to help you. And I think, again, such powerful words. And for anyone listening, whether they be an individual user or whether they be a business that wants to find out more information how they could possibly integrate it, what's the best way of finding you guys online and contacting your team?
Please go to our website. It's www.wysa.io. And otherwise, you can always reach me. I'm on LinkedIn. You can look for Ramakant and the founder as a founder. And otherwise, we leave our details with you, Neil. And if you'd be kind to share them with your listener base, that would be awesome.
Of course, at least I can do. And before you came on the podcast today, when I heard about Wysa, for me, it was an AI-guided mental health platform that is helping to deliver clinically validated care through 150 plus interactive mental resilience exercises. But having spoken to you today for 40 minutes, I've quickly learned that it's not actually about technology. It's about professional expert coaching underpinned by emotionally intelligent conversational AI. And for me, it's how human expertise and technology complement rather than compete each other to do great work and help each other out. It's phenomenal. I applaud everything you're doing and just thank you for sharing your story with me today.
Thank you, Neil. And that was really wonderful talking to you. Thank you for the opportunity.
What I love about Wysa here is how they're empowering people to take control of their mental health and address issues such as anxiety, sleep problems, depression, relationship struggles, school pressure, work stress, and so many other afflictions of the modern life that we all experience at some point or another. But it's how they've found the right balance of leveraging human expertise and technology. And it's how the two together that complement each other that is where the magic happens. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything we talked about today and how you leverage technology to improve your mental health too. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk if you need help with any ghostwriting blogs or business blogs or launching your own podcast. But that's it for me today, so I cordially invite you to join me again tomorrow. But until next time, don't be a stranger.